watching Canal Algérie, and I'm your host, Kirin Zachary. Coming up next in our news programs. The President of the Republic, Abdul Tebboune, South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, on an official visit to Algeria. Representing the President of the Republic, Ramtana Mamra, reiterates Algeria's call to all foreign parties to respect Libya's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the independence of its decisions. Major General Mohammed Ben Bisha, Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense, chairs the installation ceremony of General Titouche Nabil Youssef as head of Communications, Information Systems, and Electronic Warfare Department. And the Sahrawi Liberation Army continues to carry out military operations along the Wall of Shame, accompanied by intense diplomatic efforts. Good evening. Those were today's top stories. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Saturday the South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, on an official visit to Algeria. During this meeting, emphasis was placed on the close and secular historical relations between the two friendly countries, in addition to the imperative to promote them to a cooperation encompassing various fields to be at the height of these privileged relations. The meeting was marked by a convergence of views between the two countries on the various regional and international challenges and issues, particularly with regard to the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes. After her encounter with the President of the Republic, the South African Minister for International Relations and Cooperation gave a statement to national press. Let's have a listen.
So we've had an excellent meeting with President Tebboune of South Africa. I'm the South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. To have the opportunity to meet President Tebboune. I think this is the first visit by one of the South African ministers since the election in 2019. We confirmed the strong bonds between Algeria and South Africa, and we've undertaken to the President, myself and Minister Lamamra, that we will work very hard to ensure that we strengthen social and political and economic bonds between our two countries. We believe that Algeria and South Africa can play a very important role on the African continent, since both our countries that emerged from struggle against colonialism, and so we understand the freedom very, very, very well, and we are countries that have committed that now we've secured our freedom, we will assist others to achieve theirs. This is why both Algeria and South Africa are committed to the freedom of Palestine and the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. So we discussed this commitment and said in the context of the African Union, we need to continue to ensure that the values and principles that all of us espoused as we established the African Union are maintained in our relations with all countries on the continent. So I'm very thrilled that we've renewed the strong bonds that exist between our countries, and that we have established a very solid commitment for building on the foundation laid by President Mandela and the predecessors of President Tebboune in Algeria. So we are continuing a history that comes from a long-standing friendship, and it is a history that will now lead to the development and economic prospects of Africa being improved significantly. We also agreed with His Excellency the President that President Tebboune and Ramaphosa need to work very closely together across Africa's freedom and independence. We also believe it's very important that Africa resolves her own problems. We've seen the damage that has been done in Libya by external forces that made Libya the ground of a struggle between external forces for the mineral resources of Libya, and we don't want that. This is why Algeria and South Africa support African countries that have conflict to find peace among each other in their country. So it's very important that we as Africa stand for ourselves and we do for ourselves. This is critical. And finally, we agreed that we would like to see the youth of Africa working closely together, because African solidarity was created and exercised by our former leaders, the past generation. And we want the future generation to have similar African solidarity. Thank you very much.
Representing the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Ayman bin Abdurrahman, takes part on Sunday in the opening ceremony of the 17th edition of the Dubai Aviation Exhibition 2021. The Prime Minister presides over the ceremony of the celebration of the National Day of Algeria at Al Wasl Place at the Expo 2020. He will visit on the occasion the Algerian Pavilion. The Premier will be accompanied by a ministerial delegation composed of the Minister of Culture and Arts, Wafa Shalal, Minister of Trade and Export Promotion, Kamal Rizvi, and Minister of Tourism and Crafts, Yassine Hamati. Moving on to another topic now, the South African Minister for International Relations and Cooperation also met with her Algerian counterpart, Ramtane Lamamra, a session that was extended to the delegations of the two countries. The International Conference on Libya ended on Friday with a series of recommendations. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, was represented by the Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad Minister. During his speech, Ramtane Lamamra reiterated Algeria's call to all foreign parties to respect Libya's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the independence of its decisions. The Algerian head of diplomacy strongly condemned the continued foreign interference and the involvement of some foreign parties in violation of arms embargo. Despite their commitment to the conclusions of the two Berlin conferences and the Security Council resolutions, Ramtane Lamamra also insisted that the permanent, inclusive and definitive solutions to the Libyan crisis, as repeatedly stressed by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, could only come through a process that enshrines the principle of national unity. Ramtane Lamamra harked back to the imperative of respecting the general elections in Libya, scheduled for next December, a meeting that should consecrate the will of sovereignty and the sovereignty of the Libyan people. Furthermore, the Algerian head of diplomacy welcomed the action plan of the Joint Military Commission for the withdrawal of foreign fighters and foreign forces. Ramtane Lamamra recalled that Algeria remains ready to contribute together with the African Union to the success of the Libyan national reconciliation to regain its natural place in the international arena. Moving on, and still on the sidelines of the conference, the Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad Minister Ramtane Lamamra met the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, Yael Lampert.
Well, it was really a great pleasure to meet again with the Foreign Minister this evening. I very much appreciate him taking the time to talk about a range of issues that Algeria and the United States are engaged on together and our shared interests and priorities, among them Libya, which is at the top of the agenda today after the conference, where we discussed together our shared and mutual interest in supporting Libya as it moves towards elections, and also in the removal of foreign forces, mercenaries, all from Libya, and as was laid out in detail in the conference communique today, and by so many foreign leaders who came together here today to discuss our shared interest in supporting the Libyan people during this period. Algeria is an extremely important partner for us. This relationship really is a very strong one, a very valued one, and it was great to discuss the many aspects of it with the foreign minister. I very much appreciate having that opportunity today on the margins of this conference.
Everyone involved in the peace process will have to stand by the Libyans to help them achieve the desired results. And naturally, Algeria, as the neighboring country, will have to bear more than our fair share of commitments towards the Libyans first, then towards our international partners such as the United States of America, which are playing a key role in assisting with the arrangements we intend to take so that our experts who are following the situation in Libya on a daily basis benefits from real-time consultations and recommendations. These efforts will be coordinated on the occasion of the future meetings scheduled in the coming weeks and months.
On the sidelines of the conference still, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad Minister held a working session with many representatives of countries. This is to consolidate our common commitment to accompany and help the brotherly Libyan people to re-establish stability, relaunch development, and allow Libya find its natural place at the continental and international levels. Moving on now, Major General Mohammed bin Bisha, Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense, chaired on Saturday the installation ceremony of General Titush Nabil Youssef as Head of Communications, Information Systems and Electronic Warfare Department, replacing the late Major General Bujrit Farid. More details with Manal Maafa.
On behalf of the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, Major General Mohammed Salah bin Bisha, Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense, presided on Saturday, November 13th, over the official installation ceremony of General Titush Nabil Youssef as the head of the Communications, Information Systems and Electronic Warfare Department, replacing the late Major General Bujrit Farid and General Abdul Aziz as Director of Administration and Common Services of the Ministry of National Defense, replacing Major General Mokrani Abdurrahman. The installation ceremony took place in the presence of the heads of departments, the General Controller of the Army, the Directors of Services of the Ministry of National Defense, and the General Staff of the National People's Army. On this occasion, the Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense gave guidelines and instructions to the executives to continue efforts to achieve the goals set by the High Command and also the preservation of materials and equipment made available and maintaining a permanent availability. Finally, the Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense signed the minutes of power transfer according to a communiqué released by the Ministry of National Defense.
Debates on the draft Finance Law 2022 continue at the National People's Assembly or Lower House of Parliament. The session was chaired by the President of the Lower House of Parliament, Brahim Bughali. The Premier Finance Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman answered the preoccupations of presidents and parliamentary groups. The transition to a targeted subsidy was at the heart of their interventions on Saturday morning, notably including the mechanisms of its implementation. According to the Premier, Algeria won't announce or won't renounce its social role, explaining the state's approach. As part of materializing the Algerian-Russian Military Cooperation 2021, a squadron of warships of the Russian fleet docked at the Algiers port. It's the frigate Admiral Grigovich and the patroller Dmitry. This squadron will carry out the Joint Naval Exercise 2021 with the support units of our naval forces until November 20th. The exercise includes tactical maneuvers and intercepting suspect ship and storming enemy ships, in addition to searching and rescuing operations at sea. These maneuvers aim to strengthen coordination between the two countries. The Russian delegation was received by the command of the Maritime Frontage Center, Nuruddin Qayed. The new Communication Minister Mohamed Bouslimani took office replacing Ammar Belhaimer, following a partial cabinet reshuffle carried out by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. Mohamed Bouslimani declared that the responsibility of managing this sector is sensitive and a heavy one. He also affirmed that he will double the efforts to continue on the path of his predecessors, to be in tune with the developments, information and communication technologies, calling all the public and private media to contribute to the revival of the sector. Still with the cabinet reshuffle, the new Minister of Labour, Employment and Social Security has also taken office, replacing Abdurrahman Lahfaya. Speaking at the handover ceremony held at the ministry's headquarters, the new minister affirmed his readiness to work hard in the management of this sector. The same goes for the new Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Abdel Hafid Hani, who took office of the said ministry, replacing Abdel Hamid Hamdani, assuring that he will continue the efforts already made by his predecessors for the development of this strategic sector. Moving on now to the local elections, which is taking part on November 27th. On the 10th day of the electoral campaign, the representatives of the political parties crisscrossed several provinces of the country. Political leaders called on the Algerians to go massively to vote. Ines Kellou has the details.
Secretary General of the party El Karama, Mohamed Dawi, said from Ghalizan province that the list of his political party are committed to respond to the real grievances of citizens and find appropriate solutions to them. The first secretary of the Socialist Forces Front, Youssef Aouchij, from Sirif province, called for the need to open the way for initiatives and all energies to build the new Algeria that the martyrs aspired to, and to stand as a bulwark against attempts to destabilize the country and undermine national unity. Also in Sétif province, the acting president of the Islah movement, Faisal Bousdraya, considered that the next election is an opportunity to correct the imbalance at the level of elected assemblies in order to boost local development, calling for the municipalities located in deprived and isolated areas to benefit from their share of development programs. From Tiaret province, the Secretary General of the Democratic National Rally, Tayyip Zitouni, called to prioritize the revival of the job-creating investment in the mission of the elected officials by facilitating to the economic operators the access to the industrial land and to the financing by the provinces or the banks, while insisting on the rehabilitation of industrial zones and areas of economic activity. The president of Al Mustaqbal Front, Abdelaziz Bel'eid, said from Sétif province that Algeria needs to turn the page on 20 years of crisis and anarchic management in order to move towards a real revival, emphasizing the need to reconcile all Algerians, to move away from settling scores, to close ranks and build a strong Algeria. In the same context, the president of Al Bina movement, Abdelkader Ben Grina, called during a popular rally in Batna province to give back to the elected officials of the municipalities and People's Provincial Assembly all their prerogatives, which will contribute to boost local development and to respond in an objective and transparent way to the concerns of citizens. The president of Al Hamas movement, Abdelrazak Makri, said on Friday in Constantine province that the candidates of his political party work for the development of citizens and their regions, and he also called for an equitable development to improve their living conditions, far from the injustice often at the root of the evils affecting any progress. The president of Sawt al-Sha'b Party, Lamin Osmani, said in Oran province that Algeria needs all its youth without exception and that everyone must contribute to the building of the country. He also declared that Algeria needs all its children without exception and calls on nationalists to preserve the legacy of independence.
The Sahrawi file was at the heart of a meeting at the National Institute for Global Strategy and Studies in the presence of the Sahrawi ambassador in Algiers. The illegal trade deals of the Moroccan colonizer and the anniversary of the ceasefire violation were discussed by researchers. More on this report.
1 year after the brutal breaking of the ceasefire by the Moroccan occupation forces and the illegal annexation of El Gargarat buffer zone in a flagrant violation of military agreements, the UN declared a deterioration of the situation a year after. The Sahrawi people now are more than ever determined to recover their lands. Today, the option of peace agreements is blocked because of the Moroccan occupier. Unfortunately, the Security Council has done nothing. We have the option of war. The Sahrawi people will never give up. The 48 years of struggle are the proof of this determination. We won't stop. We will continue the armed struggle with legitimate means. We will manage to obtain our unanimous independence. During the meeting organized at National Institute for Global Strategy Studies under the theme Gargarat 1 year after, the participants were unanimous in denouncing the human rights violations committed by the Moroccan occupation army. It should be noted that the Sahrawi cause has achieved since the resumption of the armed struggle on November 13, 2020, important diplomatic gains, in particular those of the American Congress, which had blocked the opening of a consulate of the United States in occupied Dakhla sector, and the decision of the European Court cancelling 2 trade agreements between Morocco and Europe relating in particular to fishing rights.
1 year ago, the Moroccan occupier violated the ceasefire in force since 1991. Since then, many peaceful demonstrators have been repressed in the occupied region of El Gargarat. However, the Sahrawi Liberation Army has also been carrying out military operations along the Wall of Shame. These are accompanied by intense diplomatic efforts and contempt from the Moroccan side. Manal Mafa has more.
The occupier once again trampled international legality and declared war on Western Sahara, thus marking a transgression by the Makhzen of the ceasefire with the Polisario Front, signed on September 6, 1991, under the supervision of the United Nations. That day, the Moroccan occupation forces attacked Sahrawi civilians who had come to demand the closure of an illegal breach in the buffer zone of El Gargarat in violation of the truce. This aggression illustrates Morocco's stubbornness and mistrust of the international community for nearly 30 years, which led to the return of the Saharan lands to war and caused genuine international outcry. Thus, the dispute in the Western Sahara entered its 2nd year in a row and suffered a series of severe setbacks from Morocco, especially after the normalization of its relations with the Zionist entity a month later, in exchange for the recognition by former U.S. President Donald Trump of the kingdom's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara, which will question his successor. The Biden administration said that it supports a credible political process in Western Sahara led by the United Nations. Similarly, all international organizations don't recognize Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara, including the International Court of Justice and the European Union Court of Justice. At the end of September, the European Union's court cancelled 2 agreements on fisheries and agriculture linking Morocco to the European Union and extended to occupied Western Sahara. However, efforts to reach a fair and lasting solution have stalled, especially after the Security Council voted on a resolution to extend the mandate of MINURSO, which was strongly criticized and considered biased by several security members. At present, the attention is focused on the new personal envoy of the UN Secretary-General, the Italian-Swedish Stefan de Mistura, who took up his duties on November 1st. Likewise, calls are increasing for the resumption of direct dialogue between the Polisario and Morocco and for the Sahrawi people to be allowed to exercise their right to self-determination.
Demonstrations in support of the Sahrawi people were organized in Madrid on Saturday. Thousands of people marched to demand a clear and firm attitude from the Spanish government regarding the illegal occupation of Western Sahara by Morocco. The march, initiated by the Spanish Coordination of Associations in solidarity with Western Sahara, started in the center of the Spanish capital. Slogans such as self-determination now or the UN must force Morocco to respect international law were brandished by the demonstrators. Rain, sometimes in the form of stormy showers, will affect several provinces in the center of the country from Saturday evening, according to a special weather bulletin, BMS, issued by the National Meteorological Office. The orange vigilance level of these rains will concern the province of Shlif, Tipaza, Algiers, Blida, Medea, Boumediès, Bouira, and Tizi Ouzou. The BMS said the validity extends from Saturday, November 13th at 8 p.m. to Sunday, November 14th at 3 p.m. at least. It adds, noting that the estimated rainfall amounts will vary between 20 and 40 millimeters. These bad weather conditions will extend, therefore, to the provinces of Bijaya, Jijil, Skikda, Annaba, At-Taraf, and this Sunday at 3 a.m. to Monday at 3 a.m., according to the same source, which points out that the quantities of rain expected will be estimated between 30 and 50 millimeters. Well, that's it for us. Thank you for watching, and good night.